For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. Chapter 3, Resiliency. Trauma not transformed is trauma transferred. Resiliency is trauma transformed. There are ways to build resiliency without going through life-altering trauma. This portion of the training focuses on you because resiliency requires introspection and self-examination. We have to examine and understand our past experiences, our current environment, and our values that guide our decision-making. We also have to understand what is outside of our control, because no matter how trauma-informed you are, some things are still going to be traumatic. Next is an activity that builds the process of reflection and on being strengths-based with yourself. Journaling about your experience might seem tedious. I know it is for me. But it's also an effective way to examine your own responses to the situations that are thrown at you. Think about a time when you were resilient, a time when you felt like you handled whatever was thrown at you. It can be either a time in your life or a very specific situation. In your workbook, there's an activity on page 19 that asks you to describe a time that you were resilient. And P.S. it could be right now. No one will ever see this information unless you want them to. If you want to write it, draw it, paint it, code it, however you want to express your thoughts is the right way to do it. Pause the video now and complete the activity. If you need more space, please use the closest available notes page to continue. Much like trauma, resilient is a word that people use in many different ways. When referring to a substance or object, resilient means that it is able to recoil or spring back into shape after bending, stretching, or being compressed. For a person, resiliency is the ability to withstand or recover quickly from difficult conditions. For the purpose of this course, we are going to define resilient as advancing despite adversity. There are 6 domains of resiliency. Health is where you have the most control to change your resiliency. You start with your vision for your health, and you do what you can to prioritize it. Investing in your health, which looks different for everyone, makes composure and reasoning much easier. Composure and reasoning support your collaboration, and this allows you to have a more tenacious response to the situations that you're in. This next activity asks you to rate your resiliency. The second part of the activity asks you to think of different challenges that you're facing and that might benefit from resiliency. Pause the video now and complete the activity on page 21. Welcome back. If you thought measuring trauma was hard, well, there's much less resources available for measuring resiliency. There's an industry surrounding resiliency, so be careful about what you spend your money on. Building resiliency does not have to be expensive. Nature has proven resiliency outcomes. It was intentional that the theme for this training was learning and plants. Being in nature, no matter what you're doing, hopefully something you enjoy, promotes resiliency and recovery. Sometimes it's hard to get out in nature. Having plants is also effective for promoting resiliency, caring for and having them. Did you know that even having pictures of nature around you can promote healing and resiliency? While not as effective as the real thing, the fake plants beside me right now while recording this in my dark room are very helpful. A safe environment is step 1. Housing sort of has to come first. Stable relationships can protect against and prevent trauma from taking hold. Supportive friends who cheer you on are underrated always. Prioritize rest, whatever that looks like. It does not have to be earned. Engaging in enjoyable movement throughout your day and lifetime builds up your trauma immune response. Eating what feels right for you and what you have access to. Take those vacation days. No one else will. We can measure resiliency the same way that we measure trauma, through exposure and symptoms. There is a positive childhood experience survey, which is similar to the ACE survey. It does theorize and show that the more positive childhood experiences you have, the more it protects you against the risk from adverse childhood experiences. We can measure the symptoms or outcomes of resiliency by looking at personal values, the utilization of our strengths, and how we see opportunities in the face of challenging experiences. This next activity will examine your personal strengths and how you utilize them in your job. Pause the video now and complete the activity on page 25.